Hey D-Source, Davo here. Getting wiped out in a colony management sim sucks. Or does it? If you've ever enjoyed being utterly destroyed in a video game, it's more than likely that you are playing Rimworld. Rimworld is a sci-fi colony management sim developed by Ludion Studios that draws heavily from games such as Dwarf Fortress and a little from games like Prison Architect to create a pretty unique and all the while unforgiving experience. The game sets you off on a Rimworld, a frontier planet that has spacey stuff and a weird political environment that includes cannibalistic tribes and pirates that want to kill you. So kinda like Western Australia in a few hundred years' time. Your main goal is to set up a little colony and survive while mastering new technologies and building your home base to eventually build a ship and get the hell out of the place. A little unorthodox for a colony sim, but okay. The game goes into great depth about the characteristics of your colonists and how everyday actions such as work, general upkeep, sleeping patterns, eating patterns, and combat affect them, and how they can function as human beings. And I think that there's a pretty good game here. Despite the game being in early access, there's a decent amount of content for the pretty small price that you have to pay for it. Though that's just it. It's a decent amount of content, but there's not a whole lot more than that. Is Rimworld really worth getting into at the moment?
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time.
Arguably the most interesting aspect of Rimworld is its deep and in-depth systems for the characteristics of colonists and how the world around them affects them. Each colonist you have, or each pawn as the game sometimes likes to refer to them, will have their own specific personality traits and backstories, which will affect their abilities and stats and how they interact with one another socially. This system is really what makes the different stories in Rimworld come alive. The way that your colonists interact with one another and how they interact with the desolate world around them makes each new challenge unique. Sometimes you'll get really annoying colonists, like ones that refuse to carry stuff around, which is a little bit of a pain in the ass, but I guess it's all just part of the challenge. Colonists will also have a mental break threshold, which will determine when they lose their shit and can vary depending on their personality traits. One is a soft threshold, indicating a minor breakdown, and the other a hard threshold, indicating going absolutely fucking mental. So sometimes if your colonist has to eat without a table and chair, they might just go insane and start lighting fires around the place. It's happened to me before. You can re-roll your colonist until you get some kind of Chad that also just happens to have 10 PhDs, and there's a mod where you can fully customize your starting colonists, but all the ones that come after that will be random gens. You then get to roll a planet and then choose where you want to crash land on that planet, because obviously that makes sense, and the planet will span a few different biomes, of which only one is livable. Rimworld's random events are controlled by an AI storyteller, from which you can choose one of the three when you start a new campaign. Being generic, make generic face, casual mode for fucking losers, and the guy who still thinks being random is funny. The random events will include stuff like raiders, trading caravans coming to visit, new colonists joining you, or just mildly annoying stuff like solar flares that will disable all of your electronics and then you die. Each storyteller also has a number of difficulty options as well, meaning there's really a huge array of different difficulties for the game, which is kinda nice. Learning new technologies is pretty straightforward, although the UI certainly begs to differ. And the technology progression is satisfying, albeit rather slow. Then there's the combat, which is extraordinarily irritating at times. If you don't draft and move your colonists to pretty much the exactly perfect spots and angles, they will accidentally shoot each other. Having colonists using melee weapons while others use guns or whatever is the stupidest thing you could possibly do, because your ranged colonists will just shoot your friendlies in the back. And they will die. I feel like the combat needs to be fleshed out a little more, which it has been in terms of where damage can be done to a colonist or whether or not they cripple a limb or whatnot, but the actual gunplay is pretty bad. Combat does have a few other benefits however, like being able to take enemies prisoner and eventually convince them to join your settlement, which is a neat way to nab a few extra workers. But overall, a lot of the mechanics are still just a little broken or annoying, which I feel obviously has an impact on the gameplay.
Touchdown brings me round again to find.
The combat in general is just kind of annoying to do, which is a problem considering there's quite a lot of it in Rimworld. The way that combat works will often mean that you spend a lot of time taking care of injured colonists, and the fact that pawns are difficult to control directly makes it annoying when you're basically doing this the majority of the time you're playing Rimworld. I did find it a little annoying when my doctor walked away from the patient bleeding to death to go play horseshoes, forcing me to tell them to prioritize bandaging the bleeding colonist, only for them to bandage one of their wounds and then wander back off to play horseshoes again, leaving the patient still bleeding to death from like 5 other incisions. Some of the random events that happen I did find a little annoying rather than them just being part of the narrative that the game was writing out for me. Like, ooh, solar radiation. Don't go outside or you'll die. What? No, this isn't just a blatantly annoying and time delaying event. It's called a challenge, sweetie. Sometimes it just feels like you don't really get a break to just sit back and appreciate what you've built up so far. Unless you're playing a little kiddie mode, you're probably tending to the wounded or being attacked by raiders. There's not a lot of downtime once the ball gets rolling. The gameplay does end up being a little grindy, but newsflash, it's a colony management sim, so what did you really expect? The whole point of this game is to eventually tech up to be able to build a spaceship and escape the planet, but that's not really what I wanted to do. And it's certainly not the typical goal of a colony management sim. I would have liked to have been able to have multiple little settlements or something, which I guess may not be possible due to how the colony management actually works, but I don't know, even just some little outposts or something. The visuals are pretty ugly. The game just doesn't look all that nice. You can argue that the visuals aren't exactly the strong point of this game, nor are they the strong point of many colony management sims, but the game isn't all that nice to look at. The pawns and lack of real animation for anything in the world makes the world and characters look a little stiff and boring. Not to mention the menus and UI. These are disgusting. The game just looks like some really alpha version where they streamlined the shit out of the UI and they've just never bothered to update it. Like, come on, Ludion Studios. Just a little more of an effort in making the UI not look horrible and unintuitive would go a long way. Unless you're just really trying to be Dwarf Fortress.
Rocket Man, burning out his fuse out there.
Overall, this game leaves a little left to be desired. Sure, the game is still in early access, which in itself is another topic to rant about separately, but there just needs to be a little more done with this game before it's really worth sinking your teeth into. I almost feel like the real satisfaction that comes from playing Rimworld doesn't actually come from playing it, but from being able to leave a sick review on the Steam page slightly exaggerating all the stuff that happened to you on your playthrough afterwards. Yes, you can have heaps of different and unique stories and outcomes, but there's no real point to that. It's all well and good to get wiped out and start again, but there's only so many times that you get wiped out before just closing the game and forgetting about it. Although, the developers have obviously been thinking about this because they're planning to bring us a proper 1.0 release fairly soonish, and they seem to have a plan as to what they're going to be implementing. And you know, that's all well and good that they've got an idea of what they're going to do for the 1.0 release, but as far as I can see, they don't have any plans to add whoopers to the game. What the hell are you guys thinking? Like, come the fuck on. How could adding whoopers not be your number one priority on this list? More importantly, why has it not already happened? Rimworld is a waste of time, a waste of resources, 5 odd years of development down the drain. Unless Ludion Studios decide to do the right thing. Come on. You know what's got to be done. And until then, I'm just gonna pretend like I have any idea how to play Dwarf Fortress.